Hello, welcome to the Winners Find a Way show, your weekly go-to podcast for the 1% discussing winning strategies, how they built their winning teams and got winning results. If you're ready to grow and execute, communicate better than you ever have, and bring on that simplification and prioritization that they to make your dreams come true, then get your headphones on and keep your notebook close. Let's go on a journey together. Hello and welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark, CEO of Leadershipity, serial entrepreneur, lifetime and longtime speaker out globally, speaking more in 17 countries. I'm the recent author of a book, Leading Winning Teams. Most people, though, they know me because I spent over 12 years in professional baseball coaching in 3 World Series. And welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am super excited to welcome my guest, Rob Velazquez. Rob, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
I almost didn't get that out. Did you hear that? I almost didn't get it out.
It was a little tough, but winners find a way, right? You got to do it.
There you go. Velazquez. You know, I should know that, man. With all my time in baseball, a lot of cool Latin names that I always get, man. What's your heritage,
That's awesome.
Rob?
So I'm mixed. My dad is actually Puerto Rican, hence the last name. And then my mom is from a little island called Malta. So we're half Puerto Rican, half Maltese.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Yeah, Malta, beautiful. Both of them actually beautiful, man. I'm ready to go to Puerto Rico right about now, actually. You know, that's always good. You ever get down?
Of course. I've been down there probably 6 times in my life. Nice. You know? So beautiful. It's a good spot. Malta once. Definitely want to get back there. That's a good
sure. Spot. Now, Rob, I'm super excited. You're coming to us from Hallandale, Florida today. Your new home, but we're Michigan guys. Like, we grew up in Michigan. You know, we're from the Mitten State. Welcome. You know, Rob's from over here. I'm from over here. We got it. You know, like we're all in the same hand, man. Like, we're all there.
Exactly.
You know, and if we have to use 2 hands, we can. You know, like we can throw some UP action up there. All right.
Exactly.
But Rob and I are both trolls. We live below the bridge. So we are, you know, lower Michigan Peninsula people. And we're surrounded by water. We live almost on an island. And we think we're kind of a big deal, just so everybody else knows. All right. We're Michigan. And super excited about talking shop. I think you did what every Michigan kid wants to do, which you moved to Florida and get the heck out of that cold and the weather. And brilliant. Grew up in Dearborn, which is a hot area of auto plant. Man, there's a lot going on just outside of Detroit. Dearborn has a number of things now. We're going to talk a little bit about, of course, the Henry Ford Museum right there in Dearborn and quote unquote Dearborn Village and the Ford Estates. And it's pretty special over there if you're an entrepreneur. And you are an entrepreneur. You have been at this game developing sales for tons of brands, worked for great companies, RPM, fabulous logistics company out of Royal Oak, Michigan, who've just kicking butt, taking names. And man, Rob was a big part of that. I saw that firsthand being in the logistics business myself with Chicago Marine Asset Management as I watched Coyote Logistics brilliantly just go through the roof and then sell off to UPS for a couple billion. So, you know, not a terrible exit there in any way, Rob.
They did well.
Yes. So you've owned a couple. You own a SaaS company right now, but your real passion is this sales training, personal development. You got caught in network marketing, came up through that, and man, no college. You're the school of hard knocks, man. So you go through education on network marketing, and I think, Rob, you know, this is something I love about you, man, is that you really grabbed on to learning. And you know, here's this guy who's like, hey, I'm not going to college, but I'm going to go work and I'm going to go learn and sponge everything I can get. And, you know, we know the retention learning curves, right? And I love the pyramid of retention, which is always about doing it retains things, right? Teaching it to others, make sure. And I say that to a lot of people, Rob, hey, I'll know you know it when you can teach it. And now you've developed great process, great ability to predict outcomes by putting the right process and systems in place for sales, which if you're listening out there, people, I know you entrepreneurs suck at sales, okay? You need to call Rob on this because it's a struggle for a lot of companies. And the reality is that, and I want you to speak to this, Rob, is it's pretty simple, but it's about doing it every day. It's not easy. And we're back to that simple. And everyone thinks simple is easy. And I'm telling people, simple is not easy. Simple can be very hard because it's consistency that wins the day.
Yeah. And, Trent, I say all the time, the things that are easy to do are equally as easy not to do. And so, you have to find it within you to, like you said, be consistent and be persistent and put in the effort. But, for me, to go back to the learning, it's very interesting. I find that so many people, their education ends when they're finished with school. And I was the complete polar opposite. I don't think my education ever started when I was in school because I never paid attention. The only reason I went to school is because that's where I knew my friends were going to be for 8 hours a day and I was going to have access to them. Right.
Yeah. And there were girls there.
And there was girls there. Thankfully for me, I went to a co-ed private school. So the girls were there too,
Yeah. Hey, shout out to Dearborn Divine Child. All right. Little Dearborn shout out Divine to the boys down at, DDC down there. Cause that's, a legit school in the greater Detroit area. And if we're talking about top parochial schools in the Detroit area, DDC is always right there athletically, academically. It's pretty special. Sure. And it's not easy to get there. Not easy.
Yeah. I will say, even though I didn't pay much attention in school, if it wasn't for that foundation, there was a lot of structure that was put into my life. And I was definitely given the tools to be a good student if I wanted to be, right? And that's where, the old dean had always told me when I had to go visit him in the office for disrupting class, hey, if you would just apply yourself, Rob, if you would just apply yourself, your personality alone, you're going to be so successful off that. Because I was the guy that I hung out with everybody. I was friends with the athletes, the mathletes, the debate team, the science guys and girls, I played odd sports in high school because of something that happened to me.
Did DDC not have burners? Like, you left out a couple categories out there, man.
They had them. And trust me, I was affiliated with them. But, as I said, it was just once school had ended for me, that was when real life started. And a lot of my friends, I don't take anything away from them. A lot of people were super excited to go to college and university, whether it was U of M or Michigan State or out of state or something like that. But I just, noticed that most of these kids weren't excited to go to school to learn. They were excited to go to school because they wanted to party, right? They wanted to be in dorm rooms and away from mom and dad so that they could live life on their terms and do what they wanted. And, to each their own. There is a part of growing up that is developed in that aspect. But, for me, I had a interesting introduction to entrepreneurship, which was network marketing. And it happened to me at the age of 17. And, at that point in time, because I wasn't going to school, I grew up in a household where, we weren't we weren't poor, but we also, anytime that I wanted something, we had to consider the cost of things before getting into it. Right. And I just never wanted that for myself. That was how my life was from 0 to 17 years old. And for whatever reason, I just thought that, something had to change. And, it sounds very simple, these concepts again, but I understood that in order for things in your life to change, you got to change the things in your life. And so for me, I got introduced to network marketing and I was surrounded by these people that were just talking about success and money and wealth and sales and personal development. And I'm like, what the hell is personal development? And they're talking about reading books and listening to audios. And I'm like, I haven't read a book since Johnny Appleseed. Like, I don't know what you're talking about right now.
They're going to have this thing on audio. That's all I know. Are these picture books at all? Is there any pictures? Let me stop you there because, I got to tell you, it's the one massive value of network marketing. And there's a lot of values in network marketing. But the biggest I've always seen, and, I'm living in the shadow of Amway, right?
Of course.
I don't know if there's anybody better at personal development and personal education and performance education than Amway. And they're incredibly motivating. It's grounding, self-awareness on the 400 level. And 100%. It's amazing how many people get out of that. And I would also say, great advice, by the way, from the dean, like that you can apply yourself. You will be something. And maybe, you're not the best student at that time, but I think that resonated with you as a man who now going into the work world going, hey, this guy believes in me. He knows that if I apply myself, so as I make those changes and apply myself, he wasn't wrong. Is that fair? The
No,
other thing
it's
I would
absolutely
also
fair
say,
to say.
yeah, the other thing that's really interesting is I assume that your parents are immigrants. Are they first immigrant first or their grandparents?
My mom is first generation born here,
Yep,
but it was definitely a situation where they learned English because they went to school here, right? It
that's
was it
right.
was Maltese in the household, and same with my dad. My dad was actually born in Puerto Rico and then came here, and you spoke Spanish at home, and you learned English, at school, obviously. So
So
they
you're a three
are part
language
of.
guy coming out of, first grade, just because this is the thing, right? I got two languages at home. I got another one at school.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing in itself of a skill right there.
For me,
And
unfortunately, I didn't translate, so I only speak English. Now I
oh,
understand Spanish. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We were never taught other languages in the household, and it's definitely a regret. I think even on our parents now, because they were so. And I think you got to understand, there's two types of immigrant families. You have the ones that are super proud and like want their kids to obviously stay the tradition. And I'm not saying that my parents are not traditional. We love our culture. We love where we're
yeah,
from. We're proud of it. But
yes,
also, when your parents grow up getting picked on by kids in school because they don't know how to speak the language, I just think they didn't want that for us.
that's right.
And
And
so,
I think that makes perfect sense, by the way. I mean, for parents, they want better for their kids and
of
realize this
course,
was hard for me. I came here not knowing the language. I'm running
right.
behind and I gotta deal with this stuff. And my kids, I don't want them to deal with that. And I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I gotta think because your parents worked their tails off to create a better life. And they certainly did that, right? I mean, both Ford employees, Ford is a great company and they have done very well by their people and they're lifers. They've been plant workers for a long time,
A long
and
time.
most. I'll just say this is no knock on anybody. There are not a lot of plant workers' children over at Dearborn Divine Child. These schools are not inexpensive. You're making a real sacrifice financially to have your
Mhm.
children go to one of these schools and get this higher level of education. And
Yeah.
I just had a great conversation in Kansas City about that last week. And so the reality is like, I got to wonder what your parents are. You're jacking around at school, really not meeting your, academic potential. Let's just say that. And I'm thinking your parents are about to cut your hands off because they're like
Trust
going,
me.
do you know what we're sacrificing to have you there?
I'll put it to you this way. It wasn't until I was maybe 21 years old where my parents definitely thought that they had taken a loss on that investment.
Yeah.
They were seriously, upset because again, this is a college prep school. This is where kids literally go to get good grades. If you have good grades and you cross your T's and you dot your I's and that name is on your application to a university, chances are you're getting in. And it just wasn't the case for me. No college would accept me. Even the party colleges weren't accepting me because they're like, dude, you just don't even have the framework to get here. You don't even have the minimum requirements to get in here. Head over to community college.
There's some
So
great ones in Michigan too.
there are definitely some great ones. Fire up chips. So that was the one that a lot of people wanted to go to. But again, and it wasn't for me. I didn't care. I knew that college wasn't going to be the route for me. I knew that wasn't going to be the place. But it didn't have any type of hold back on my mindset that like I was going to be super successful. And I appreciate you for bringing up my parents here, Trent, because I always tell people when I do get the opportunity to tell the story of my parents, they're the real rags to riches story, not me.
Yes.
I mean, the
Oh
fact
yeah.
that they did what they did and put me in the position that they put me in, I should be doing what I'm doing with my life right now. And, my goal is to do the same thing for my kids when I have them and they're my age. They should be further advanced than I am because of the stage that they are given to perform on, so they're the real rags to riches story. For me, doing what I'm doing, it's expected in my opinion.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that, Rob. I mean, that is, first of all, shout out, right, to Mr. and Mrs. Velazquez, because that is, Mr. Velazquez gave up a lot. You're married, you're born in Puerto Rico, you come here and very
Yeah.
little of the customs, very little of the ways. It's a long way from Puerto Rico, especially on a culture. And for goodness sakes, coming to Michigan, for God's sakes, like most people in Puerto Rico have never seen snow, just to clarify this, right? So it
Right.
is a number of sacrifices on the front to create a better life for his
Of
children.
course.
So
Yeah.
really, really admirable. And And so I love what you said about positioning, because I think that's a big deal that people don't understand. A lot of this life is positioning yourself for the next opportunity. And people are
Absolutely.
giving you a hand up in how to do that. They're showing you, they're mentoring, they're putting you in a position. And your parents, by even introducing you to Dearborn Divine Child and getting you in that school, automatically meant doors can be opened because of the education you're going to get, because of the people you're going to know, because of the friendships and the relationships and the fellowship, and your ability to create value and contribute in this world. And you're around a bunch of other people who've already created a bunch of value and contribution. So positioning is a really big deal, folks. And I
100%.
tell a lot of people in pro sports, man, you're looking, you hit double A ball in the minor leagues. You're an injury away from the major leagues. You are positioned now for a potential really good opportunity. And
Absolutely.
I like to say it this way. If I'm sitting in at AAA and I'm a 33-year-old veteran who's bounced up and down, and we got young Rob Velazquez over here in the same position in AA. He's a 23-year-old superstar who's got the same numbers I got. They're betting on the young talent, and let's look at the future. Let's not hire a guy that we already know that he's about peaked here. And Rob's still got a long way to get better. And so he is now positioned for the opportunity way better than I am. And it's all about positioning if you're looking to get ahead. So I think that's a great point.
And that applies too, Trent, I'd like to say that applies too in the business world, because that's exactly what happened to me at the age of 21 years old. When I got hired by that logistics company, I was young, I was hungry. I really didn't know anything about trucking and transportation. I didn't, but I had a can-do attitude, and I had a elaborate sales background leading up, to that. And whereas, you said the 33-year-old, AAA player, which, was the directors at the time, were sitting there, and there would be a project or an environment or something, would come up where the owner would come into the room and say, hey, look, we have this contract here. We need this much capacity here. I have this list of carriers. Let's call them all. Let's source as many trucks as we can. And whereas you got, kind of an older dog there that's like, we did that before and it doesn't work. You got me that's saying, hey, listen, if he doesn't want to do it, I'll do it. Me and my department will handle it, right? And when you have the right attitude, the facts don't count. What other people have done in the past is irrelevant, right? And you go into things with the right mentality, and that's where you produce the results. And that's what allowed me to climb up that chain so quickly, because of my position, number one, and then my willingness, number two, right? So it applies in sports and in business and everything else, right? It's all applicable.
100%. I think, we have these events as coaches where we go, oh man, Hector's just awesome. And, I'll take 10 more just like him. Works his tail off, always comes ready to practice, coachable, listening, trying to execute what you're teaching him, goes in, willing to do the reps. In business, what I just heard was the owner recognizes a young man named Rob who says, I will. Hey, I've got a project. And the 33, 35-year-olds are going, man, I slumped through that crap when I was 23 and 25. I shouldn't have to do that anymore because, I've arrived now. I'm a guy and I'm past that.
Right.
And the people that say, I will, keep getting opportunity. I will. Hey, the cleaners aren't going to be able to make it this week. Could someone take the trash out this week so we just clear that out of the 100%. Office? Hey, I will, sir, I will. And so, this young Rob keeps saying, I will. And he's like going, hey, man, I just need a winner who will find a way. And clearly it's in Rob Velazquez. And this is where I want to be, man. And so at 23 years old, he makes you the director of sales.
Yeah.
I'm trying to navigate this. This guy's got a lot on the line. And if you don't know anything a lot about logistics business, I would say 70% of your operations is sales. Listen, the trucks will move. There's not a lot of process behind how things, I don't want to discount operations in logistics. It's real and there's a lot going on. But there's really not a lot going on if no one sells anything. So, you just have trucks sitting in a parking lot out back. So, this is what happens. If there's no sales, there's no activity. So this becomes a 70% portion of the business. It's nearly or over 2/3 of operations and what's happening. So, man, this guy is putting his house, his family, he's putting his future on the line with a 23-year-old that says, I will, why would he do that?
Yeah, it's really simple. It's because I would get results, right? You know, you had mentioned that I do coaching and sales now. And the reason that I do coaching and sales now, I like to go back and explain to everybody that I've done it all. I used to do door-to-door sales in the telecom space. I used to do fitness and wellness sales. You know, I was the general manager of, 4 different locations for gyms. You know, I've done technology sales with my SaaS company. And when I went into this logistics space, it was, at that time, again, I didn't know much about logistics. And I had so many people that were telling me in my ear, buzzing and buzzing and buzzing, oh, B2B is so much different from B2C, and you have to be logical and it has to make sense and this and that. And I just come to find that that was all BS. And, I didn't have to know about logistics to sell logistics, because at the end of the day, the person that was on the other end of the phone that I was talking to was a person. And what I have found in sales that has worked for me since the beginning of time, it works now, it'll probably continue to work in the future as far as I can see. And that is that, people buy from people. They don't buy from businesses, and they don't buy, concepts or ideas. They, I get it. There are some strategies to that. And it depends on the type of person that you're talking to and their personality. But ultimately, people were not, answering the phone that morning and deciding to work with me because I worked for RPM and RPM was a great company and RPM had all these amazing assets, not taking anything away from RPM. They decided to work with me because of me. People don't really care. And this is something that anyone who's in sales here, you should write this down, is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. At the end of the day, the person that you're talking to, they have a company that they're responsible for as well too, right? Whether they're the owner of the company or the head of the department, right? They're the decision maker for a reason, because their job and their position and their company depends on the decisions that they make. So it's in your best interest to identify why they do what they do. What they do is irrelevant. Right? When they do it, who cares? How often, how much, how big, how wide? It's just all fill in the blank type information. The thing that matters is understanding why people make the decisions that they make. And if you can identify why they do what they do, and you can also ensure them that you can help them do that better, easier, faster, more cost effective, whatever it's going to be, now they're going to give you the shot. And that's all you need is the shot. If you're somebody that has the can-do attitude that I had, I was promising people that I would give them a truck in a city, in a state that I had never even heard of, because I knew that if they gave me the opportunity to get that load taken care of, I had the can-do attitude to go find what it was that needed to fit the script. And, majority of the time, that's exactly what happened, right? And then, once you do it once, you can do it again and again and again. And that's how I built a book of business very, very quickly. And, the reason that I then became the director of sales is because, the owner wanted that reduplicated. He didn't want, a sales team of people that looked around at their current circumstances, their current situation, the current load board, the current capacity of available trucks, and selling based off that. He wanted people who were going to sell damn near a magic trick and then go make magic happen. And, again, it just so happened to be that I was the guy in the room that not only possessed it, but was willing to teach it to other people.
It's awesome. It's funny when, people get those rackets, right, about what sales are. And, the funny thing about B2B, what I always loved was I found out how motivated people were to look good at their job. That was very motivational to be successful. Second real benefit was that they were never spending their own money. Me selling you, Rob, of why you need to spend your hard-earned money was always a much harder sale to me than saying, hey, what do you think about spending the company's money on this? So it's not really mine anyway. Boom.
You're 100%
if we
correct.
could get that. That was a huge difference for me. So I always have, I've played, a lot in the B2B space, right? But let's come back to, our show. Winners find a way. Winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win. People would not know this about you, and maybe what most people don't know about you, Rob, is that you were coming up as a young budding athlete. You love sports. You love to do this, and at 12 years old, you take a serious detour when you're diagnosed with cancer in your leg. Tell us a little bit about that and what happened from there.
Yeah, it was a shell shock. It was completely unexpected. You're talking about literally something that came from completely out of left field. But at the same time, and this is where, I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna go forward and then I'm gonna come back to it. But getting sick at the age of 12 was probably the best thing that could have ever happened for me. And I think that you'll find that, when people have the mentality that I have, to be on a show like this, Winners Find a Way, they'll take a situation like that was sent to destroy them, and they'll literally say it was one of the best things that had ever happened to them. And it was, genuinely, because that it made me look through life from a different lens from a super young age. And what I mean by that is I was always a daydreamer. In school, again, I wasn't, paying attention to what the teacher was saying. I was sitting there, either thinking about practice after or the game coming up on the weekend or what I was going to be doing with my friends. I was always someone that for whatever reason, I spent a majority of my time in either the present or the future. I very rarely spent any time, thinking about past. And so when I got sick, thankfully, and again, I don't know where the skill set came from of being a daydreamer, but it had already developed. So I spent an unbelievable amount of time when I was going through my chemotherapy and recovering from surgery and doing the chemo again. It was all overall about an 18-month span. I spent majority of that time in the future. And what I mean by that is just thinking about being back on the field, being back on the diamond, being back on the gridiron, being back hanging out with my friends and doing the things that a 12-year-old kid does, right? And so, I am playing sports and, digress here a little bit. I'm playing sports and I'm having a little bit of pain in my leg. And that's actually a really funny story. I remember I was at football practice one day and I go up to my coach because, the only time I would ever experience pain was during like practice. Or when I was like sitting at home and my mom was like, hey, go do your homework. I'd be like, my knee, But then there was a day at practice, I'm at football practice and, we go and we got to run our laps. And I come back and I'm like, Coach, I don't know what's going on with my leg, but it's hurting me. He's like, all right, yeah, no problem. He's like, go take a lap and see if it feels better. So those were the types of things that I was dealing with. But, it was actually a day in gym class and I'm playing guys versus girls in basketball. And as, in Rob fashion, I hit the game-winning shot and I do a little na-na boo-boo to this girl because we're playing boys versus girls. And she kicks me in my knee. And I dropped to the ground. I'm in excruciating pain. I was in so much pain, again, that I was actually already starting to wear a knee brace, like a little compression sleeve. That's what my dad was giving me, to just kind of help with it. And, I take the sleeve off my leg. It's super swollen. I can't, walk on it. And so I go to the doctors and the doctors, they touch my leg, they're bending it, tweaking it, whatever, and it's not broken. They're like, he's fine, go home, he'll be fine. And my mom at that day, she was like, look, we're not leaving here unless you do an x-ray on his leg because he just missed baseball tryouts today. And he wouldn't have done that. I'm not the type, I don't care if I'm on my deathbed, I'm going to practice or tryouts or whatever, right? So she's like, we're not leaving here until we get an x-ray. So they get an x-ray and, something was found. Don't know exactly what was found, but then it turned into going to the hospital, x-ray there. Then it turned into going to U of M, Mott's Children's Hospital, getting an MRI. And then it turned into a biopsy. And that's how they identified everything. So that was how I found that I, was sick. It all happens, again, 18-month span. And what was interesting is that, it wasn't until 5 to 6 years later where I was introduced to personal development. And that's when I started learning the power of positive thoughts and visualization, manifestation, a lot of these different concepts that I had never even heard of. Right. And it was finally at that time where I was able to connect the dots backwards and realize that, oh my God, The reason that I'm still here today was because of the mentality that I had, the mindset that I had and had developed. It was because of that lens that had been created that I looked through life with because of the situation that I was in, right? When your back's up against the wall and you don't really have a choice, again, you figure it out. And
Right.
so because that happened to me at such a young age and it produced the result that it did, which was, victorious and coming out on top, and I'm as healthy as I've ever been before. And, it's been like that for a very long time now. It's just been, a lot of these lessons are things that they're applicable in every which way, shape, and form. So I've been able to take that mentality and apply it to literally everything I've done since then. And I'll forever be grateful for it,
Yeah. Well, I love the idea of first of all, I do agree with you, Ben. Many people who have come on the show have talked about their biggest challenge is also their biggest blessing.
Always.
And man, yeah, you talk about this. I mean, you were a visualizer. You were a visualizer because that's what a dreamer is. They're visualizing what their ideas are. I remember, I think it was Paula Poundstone, an older, comedian back in my day. And, I'm older, maybe she's not, but, she would say, you know why adults are asking kids what they want to be when they're growing up? They're looking for ideas, and I always love that because
oh,
people
that's
are so
awesome.
bad. People are so bad at visualization. But here you are, and I put this actually in leading winning teams, and a little station identification, please go out. I'm going to drop in the bottom. You can pick up leading winning teams right now, and if you pick up 2 copies of leading winning teams right now on pre-sale, send me the receipt. I will send you a workbook on the pain exchange based on my TEDx talk and based on some exercises in the book. You can do a little workbook of the pain exchange and learn the discipline of the superstar athletes and the world beaters. So please check out those links below on Barnes & Noble and Amazon already, and those links are in the chat notes. In the book, Leading Winning Teams, I talk about this visualization, Rob, and there's a little study that was done with basketball players, and they have a whole group of basketball players, and they break them into 3 groups. One group is allowed to practice their free throws, and they physically practice, and then the next group is not allowed to practice at all, but they actually have practice time, and during that practice time, all they're to do is sit and visualize making free throws. And then the other group does nothing. And of course, the group that does nothing sucks. They don't improve at all, right? They get worse. And the group between the team that physically practices and visualizes is fractional. The group that never picked up the ball, but just sat there visualizing, nearly made the same improvements as the team that sat there doing all the practice. So as you're sitting there down for the count, for a few years here through treatment, through rehabilitation, a lot of time to be in your mind, visualizing your future and what you wanted for your life and how you're going to carve that out in the future. I think that's super powerful.
Yeah, it's something that I later learned. It's referred to as the training balance scale. And I teach about that now when I speak at companies or when I do my one-on-one coaching with clients. But essentially, the training balance scale is that on one side of the scale, you have the how, right? This is going to be the techniques, the activities, the processes, the systems, and all of that stuff, right? And then on the other side of the training balance scale is you have the why. The why is going to be the thoughts, the emotions, the feelings, the mental processes, not the physical processes, but the mental processes. And a lot of people would tell you that, 99% of it is based on the techniques and, the mentality is just the small percentage. It's actually the complete opposite. 99% of success is on the why, and the how really doesn't matter. And the reason that I say that is because we've all heard of beginner's luck, right? Well,
Correct.
I'm going to explain what beginner's luck really is. Beginner's luck is someone that has no idea what the heck they're doing, right? And they also have no idea how to do it. But for some reason, they still go ahead and get the result. Why is that? It's not because they're good at what they do. It's because they're so damn excited to be there and because they're so freaking excited to get the result, whether it's a sale or closing a deal or getting on base or making the team or whatever it is, right? They're just so excited to be there. And, obviously they have to have a positive mental attitude. It can't be someone that's coming from a place of scarcity where they're like, I'm not sure if this is going to work or whatever. Those people never have beginner's luck. The people who have beginner's luck 10 times out of 10 are the people that are just so fired up, right? I say this a lot. I say ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice. The people who know what to do but just don't do anything, they might as well not know what to do. But for those who have no idea what they're doing and they're just moving forward and putting in the action and the effort, they're going to get results. It might not be the craziest results. It might not be the best results, but they're going to get results. And it's crazy because what you see a lot, especially in new people, whether it's in sales or athletes or whatever it is, you've probably seen this as a coach, right? You have a guy that comes in and he's like a rookie, okay? And he's absolutely on fire. It's like every time this guy steps up to the plate, he is getting on base, he's scoring, he's doing this, he's doing that, right? And then all of a sudden, halfway through the season, or maybe it's after he has this amazing rookie of the year season, he gets into a slump. And it's like, why is that? He didn't forget how to hit the ball. He didn't forget how to do what he was doing. He has lost touch with why he's there. He has lost touch with it.
I want to talk, it's really good, Rob. I really want to talk about this getting results. Everybody wants productivity. Everybody wants that big 80, right? Like they ultimately, that's our scorecard, right? We all go, oh man, if I could just get these results and we could make and sell an extra $5 million this year. And we all put these numbers behind what we're trying to do. You have when we talk about the 16 strategies of growth, one of your superpowers is, designing weekly activities, daily activities that can predict and produce outcomes. Talk to me about how you learned how to do that and the discipline to set the daily consistency to make that happen.
100%. So I learned it over a duration of time. It wasn't in one situation at all whatsoever. Different companies, working with different people, again, being a student of the game, paying for mentorships or programs. I used to go to a ton of, events and like seminars and different things like that. And, what I've boiled it down to when it comes to productivity from a sales, perspective, and it's not just in sales. I mean, if you want to grow your revenue, if you want to grow your client base, there's a thousand ways to skin a cat, obviously. Whatever metric it is that you want to look at, it's very, very easy to decode it, right? So there's something that I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with here, but it's called the law of averages, right? And the way that the law of averages works is it's really, really simple. If you call 10 people and you're new, right? You're just getting started. So you essentially you suck at what you do, right? You're just getting started. You call 10 people, you get one person to buy or set an appointment or whatever it is that your ultimate goal to achieve is, right? A ratio has appeared there. It's 1 out of 10. Well, what happens is the law of averages states that once a ratio has appeared, that ratio will either continue or increase. The only way for that ratio to no longer appear is for you to stop doing what you're doing, right? So based on your current skill set, 1 out of 10. You call the next 10 people, 1 out of 10. You call the next 10 people, 1 out of 10. But then something magical happens on that next set of 10 calls that you make. Either you learned a new phrase or you figured out a value add or, something's just working for you. Maybe it's just your confidence. Maybe you got a little bit more spunk in you, right? And then what happens is you get 2 out of 10. And then again, that magic happens. Confidence goes up. Skill set gets a little bit better. 3 out of 10, right? And, you as a baseball coach definitely know this. But at 3 out of 10 times up to the plate, if you're getting on base, it's a damn good batting average. And 3 out of 10,
you'll make millions, Rob.
You'll make millions, exactly. And it's the same thing in sales. If you're closing at a 30% rate, I don't care what your product is, you're going to do very, very well for yourself. And so once you understand that law of averages and you go ahead and you decode that. So for example, when I used to have a door-to-door office and we were selling telecom, right? We knew that we would give you a territory. That territory would have anywhere from, let's say, 150 to 200 addresses on it. Okay. And you would map out your territory. You were going to pick 60 houses. Okay. And out of those 60 houses, you were going to do 3 laps on all 60 houses, right? Because people are going to be home at different times of the day. Based on if you got those 3 laps in on those 60 houses, you're going to see anywhere from 20 to 30 people that are going to come to the door and they're going to talk to you. Out of those 20 to 30 people, you should give a full presentation to about half of that, which is going to be anywhere from 10 to 15 people. Out of giving that presentation to 10 to 15 people, you should be able to run credit on 3 to 4 out of those people. And then out of 3 of those 4 people that you're running credit on, you should be getting 1 to 4 sales based on credit and everything like that, right? So it was very, very simple when you had that law of averages built out like that. And let's say that I had someone come back to the office after, because I always used to do end of the day settle-ups where every rep would have to bring me, their tick sheet, and I would look at it and see what their numbers were and their metrics for the day, right? And it was a really, really simple conversation, Trent. At the end of it, if I had someone who brought me their sheet and they only had 1 lap, right? I would just have the conversation with them. I would say, listen, how many sales did you want to get today? And they're like, oh, I wanted to get 2 to 3 sales a day. Okay, well, based on your effort metrics here, which is just the amount of laps that you did and everything, just start at the top of the funnel. The amount of laps that you did 1 lap and you're supposed to do 3. So it's impossible for you to even be able to hit the goal that you wanted. So tomorrow, we're going to do 1 of 2 things here. Either we're going to decrease your goal or we're going to increase your productivity and your effort. Which one would you like to do? And 9 times out of 10, obviously they're going to say, oh yeah, I'll increase my activity, my productivity, right? Because no one wants to decrease their goal, right? So that's the law of averages. The second thing is knowing the score, okay? Coming from a guy that, again, has that background of being an athlete, I used to constantly be looking at the scoreboard. I used to constantly want to know, what did the other team have? What did I have? How many fouls, how many timeouts, what quarter is it, how much time is left in the game, right? And so I feel like a reason that a lot of people fall short of the growth and production that they want is maybe the owner knows how much revenue he's doing. Maybe the director knows how much in volume of sales. But the question is, does each individual person on your team know exactly what the score is? And if they don't, right, we actually saw it in, I think it was an NBA Finals game with, you remember when J.R. Smith, the rebound came down, they outlet it to J.R. Smith, and he goes ahead and calls a timeout. Do you remember that? And they're going against the Warriors, and LeBron is like, what are you doing? And he's like, I thought we were up by 1. I thought we were up, right? Yeah. And they lost the game. They lost the game because he went ahead and instead of getting the rebound and putting the ball right back up and taking the lead, he gets it and he sends it out and calls a timeout. And literally LeBron's like, what are you doing? Because LeBron's the type of guy that always knows the score. He knows exactly what the score is, exactly how much time is on the clock. But one of his teammates didn't, and it cost them the entire game. I think it cost them the whole NBA Finals that year. I don't know exactly, but it's the same situation in your business. If you know the score, or your top producers or your captain of your teams, they know the score, but your, and not to take anything away from anyone, but your lower level salespeople, your entry level salespeople have no idea what's going on, you're setting yourself up to lose the finals, right? You're setting yourself up for failure there. So everyone needs to know the score. Everyone needs to know what their revenue goal is, how many sales it takes to get that, how many sales are they at, decoding their effort metrics to the law of averages. And at that point, it's going to be different for everybody too. Another thing that I always said to people is, you got to make up in numbers what you lack in skill. So your entry level sales guy is going to have to do, 10 times the amount of calls as your senior sales guy, and make it known to people. You can't do Someone who's a brand new coach can't come in and do what you do as a coach, Trent, because you've been doing this for years. You're just way better and with way less effort. But it's not that you're putting in less effort. It's just you have years of experience, right? So all of this stuff comes together to produce, the growth that people are looking for.
Yeah, it's so good. Let's talk about another strategy of growth where you've been challenged, designing spending plan on where to best put your assets, generate that revenue, and then how to use it successfully to scale the business. You've dialed in process and even the culture for your people we're going to talk about too. And so you've got some things that you're really good at. What do you think's been the biggest challenge and the hurdle for you as an owner now? You've helped a lot of other owners really scale. Now you're the guy sitting in that seat and finding out that it's more than you thought, or what are you thinking?
Definitely more. I mean, ultimately, look, everything falls on you, even at a high level when you're the director of a company or even an executive of a company. Ultimately, it's not your money, that gets lost in the event that something goes wrong. You might lose your position, but you don't lose your money. So it's definitely more. And I think that when you have a business and you're looking to scale, for me personally, the biggest struggle that I've had is when starting a business and being in that startup phase, right? You think that what you want and you think that what you're going to get is going to be a bunch of other like-minded individuals, like entrepreneurial individuals. And sometimes, there's people out there who create a dream team like that. But ultimately, what you have to realize is in order to scale your business, no matter how much of a startup it is or it isn't, when you get to that scaling point, you're going to have people that are employees and they're looking to only be employees. They're not looking to be anything more. They don't want to bear the responsibility. They don't want to bear, anything else other than like, hey, I have a job, I'm getting paid, I do what I'm supposed to do, and that's it, right? And, for you at that point in time, you need to really understand, and, I'm an amateur on this, truthfully, but I think I heard a guy, just tell me this. I'm trying to remember what he said, but I had my goals. I used to have an office in Detroit, Michigan. And there was a guy, he was like a venture capitalist, I believe. And he was in one of the offices across from us. And he saw that on my thing for 2023, I had a revenue goal of doing $1 million a month. I had a employee goal at the end of 2023. At that time, I wanted like 15 employees or something like that. Or maybe the revenue goal was I forget exactly what it was that I had. But he came in and he was like, hey, do you mind if I share a piece of advice with you? And I was like, yeah, of course, whatever you think is going to help. And he had mentioned that for every employee that you have, you want that employee to generate, I believe it was $300,000. And if they don't generate $300,000, that, it's probably not a good idea to like scale it. So I say that to say that whatever my employee goal and my revenue goal wasn't making sense. I wanted way too many employees and genuinely for no reason. I didn't have positions for them or anything like that. I just had this vision that like, okay, we're going to make a lot of money. We're going to have a team of people and everything is going to be delegated and we're just going to be, making all this money and life's going to be good. Right.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case.
It's not that easy, right? It is that simple, but it's not that easy. I love that. Good recognition. Okay. And then the last thing of the 16 strategies that you guys have another superpower in is, and I want to talk about where this came from. Like most companies I see really lose the benefit it's work. And since we're going to be here all the time, let's have some fun. Let's celebrate the victories. Let's do stuff together and enjoy being together, enjoy the work, enjoy the success together. And you've really dialed this in. Talk to me how you got that early, because as a young man, I see a lot of people who don't get this.
I'm not going to sit here and say that I wasn't part of a hustle culture, because I was, especially in the beginning. And there's even times where, I'll just want to work, right? But at the same time, and again, I credit this back to network marketing. Network marketing, I'll forever be indebted to that industry and forever grateful for it. Not because of the amount of money that I made, because it wasn't a ton, but because of the concepts and the personal development, all the things that I learned. One thing that I heard, and this was at like one of the very first events that I ever went to, and it has stuck with me forever. And that is, if you build the people will build the business, right? So if you build the people will build the business. What that means is that if you develop individuals, they'll want to work with you. They'll enjoy what they do. They'll love what they're doing, because not only are they producing, results, and you got to understand, people producing results is a byproduct of people becoming something more and something better, right? So if you have somebody who isn't producing the results that you want, it doesn't make them a bad person. It just means that they're not developed to the level that you need them to be developed. So you got two choices: get rid of them and replace them with somebody who is developed. Just know that that might be more expensive, or you use the investment of your time and develop that individual to be, someone who produces the results that you want. The other thing that, helps build a great culture, and this was the exact reason that I got hired when I worked for RPM. I'll never forget that interview. It's the only interview that, that sticks out to me like a sore thumb. And it was, when I went into that interview, they were talking about, look, again, I didn't know anything about logistics and supply chain. And we didn't talk about logistics and supply chain. We talked about the way that they trained their salespeople. They were talking about straight line persuasion. They were talking about 10X. They were talking about, a book called Think and Grow Rich and the Law of Attraction. And I'm sitting here thinking, this is all of the stuff that I've studied for the past 3 to 4 years. And there's you talked about your TEDx talk. There's a really good TEDx talk I would encourage anyone here to listen to. It's by Simon Sinek. It's called The Golden Circle. Okay. And in that, Simon says, the goal of doing good business is not to do business with people who have what you want. The goal of doing good business is to do business with people who believe what you believe. So if you want to build a good culture, and if you want to build a team that is going to absolutely kick ass and have fun doing it, you have to work with people who believe what you believe, not people who have what you want, right? A guy might have the skill set. A guy might have the skill set that you need, that you're lacking. But then, on a personal level, you guys just don't align with each other. Your beliefs are not in alignment. That guy, at the end of the day, when things get tough, he isn't working for your company for a greater cause. He's literally just working for you because he needs the money,
I love it. Rob Velazquez. Rob, thank you so much for joining us today on the Winners Find a Way show, man. Tons of learning in there, people. I got all sorts of great notes. Check it out. Just dropping some great nuggets there. I am going to check out that TEDx on the Golden Circle for everyone. Winners Find a Way show every Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, on LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, on the Leadershipity channel. You can always find our podcast on all the major networks. Check out below. We are having a great retreat coming up in Tulum, Mexico. Only 12 places, and I think there's only 10 left. So jump in. That's going to be right at the end of May after Memorial Day, where we're going to be talking about how to double, 2X your business fast. Investors in Growth event. And I'm telling you, there's so much good investment going on in Tulum. You're going to love it. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world. I can't wait to get down, and you're going to be with me and Corey Warfield and AI. And it is going to be incredible. Rachel Weaver and PR, and talk about scaling your business. For everybody else, Rob, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us on the Winners Find a Way show. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Trent.
Organizations come to me all the time with challenges of execution and communication with their teams. We help build a system through Bloom Growth and software that gives them simplification and prioritization. I teach, facilitate, and coach these organizations to literally double their value. If you're interested in gaining your individual and organizational growth, please email me at trent@leadershipity.com or click the link below and book a 15-minute call on my Calendly.